Support comes from Sunday Morning Cafe, founded by researcher, speaker, and therapist Dr. Tom Wagner, offering mini retreats with live music and online resources to build resilience and community. SundayMorningCafe.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio, this is St. Louis on the Air. I'm Alex Hoyer. Technology has made a lot of things better and more convenient, but somewhere along the way, it's also made some parts of everyday life a little less satisfying. For example, when I was a kid, I loved looking through the Rand McNally road atlases in the back seat on family road trips. I would try to figure out where we were and how long it would take to get to where we were going. I'd also look at the changes in elevation along the way. I'd discover towns I'd never heard of, and I'd enjoy dog-earing one of those big pages and then turning to the next page to discover something new. But as a driver, I don't need physical maps today. Now, I take my smartphone, I pull up Waze, and it tells me the quickest and best way to get me to where I'm going. It's a lot safer too because I don't have to fumble around with a paper map. But in solving one problem, we quietly gave something else up, and for me, that was the joy that came from interacting with a physical map. I bet you can think of your own examples too of things you miss and of small things you experience today that bring you joy. Get your thoughts ready because we'll open the phone line soon. My guest this hour is Ian Bogost, and he argues that we've become disconnected from the physical world and that simple pleasures of daily life have been stripped away. But he has suggestions on how to reclaim gratification in your day-to-day life. Bogost is a columnist for The Atlantic, and he's the Barbara and David Thomas Distinguished Professor at Washington University. He teaches computer science and engineering, film and media studies, and art and design, and he's the author of the new book, The Small Stuff: How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. Ian Bogost, welcome back to St. Louis on the Air.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
So I enjoyed your book, but I have to admit that it felt a little foolish to read it because in the lead up to today's conversation, I was asking family and friends and colleagues about small things in life that they enjoy.
Right.
And then I'd share my own, which is that when I drive my wife's minivan, I enjoy pushing down on the blinker lever down to turn left, and I love the way that lever feels.
Yeah.
So help me not feel so foolish for reading your book.
Yeah, I love that too. I think what you're feeling is a sign that you've found this pleasure that I call gratification. There's something about it that feels a little foolish, right? It feels a little awkward. You're maybe a little embarrassed. And to me, that's a sign of that pleasure really kind of creeping in. And I found, I don't know if this worked for you when you were talking to your family about the turn signal, but I found that giving it voice, talking about it, that helps normalize that sensation a little bit. And usually someone will admit, oh, I love that too. I love that click feeling of the turn signal, whatever it might be. So that's one of the steps. That's one of the tips I give in the book. Just talking to one another about these sensory delights helps make them feel less odd, less curious, and more normal. And I have just found that people are kind of right there with you when you come to the table with an example like that.
Did you feel odd at that, or were you good from the get-go?
Oh, no. I still feel strange about this all the time. And I think there's multiple levels of oddity. One of them is just the sort of strangeness of admitting that you have a human body in the world and that you enjoy engaging your human senses with the world, because you're not supposed to do that. You're just supposed to look past the turn signal. You're trying to get to where you're going so you can finish the errand, so you can get to work, so you can get your promotion, so that you can achieve big goals and accomplishments in your life. That's sort of where we've been oriented. Big picture
big
happiness.
Things. Yeah,
big stuff. And so it does require a change of attitude to embrace small stuff as valid, but also is capable of delivering legitimate. I mean, to me, it's a kind of a miracle. The fact that you're able to engage with this engineered, human constructed device that is your minivan. That's miraculous. What a gift that the world offers that in addition to the oak trees and to the wind that blows through your hair. But that isn't the kind of thing that we're used to thinking about. Instead, we're supposed to like look past those. That's kind of what we've been trained to think about those sensory encounters. And to me, the thing I realized as I started conceptualizing the book and then working on the book is that, wow, we're missing out. Every moment of our lives is riddled with sensory experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't learn to appreciate it in those moments, then we're missing out on all of that pleasure, that little pleasure that adds up over time.
Yeah, and what is it about experiencing those sensory moments? Like, is it when we get goosebumps, or is it like just when we think fondly on a small thing that passes us by? Like, what is experiencing a quote-unquote small thing?
Yeah. So I use this word gratification. Some people use different terms, but I sort of I found that was the closest to what I meant. You think about happiness, which we've already mentioned a little bit. It's like, what is that even? Everyone wants to be happier, but if you ask them what it means, they're not really sure. It's usually associated with purpose, with big accomplishments. It's something that's hard. It's something that you only come upon in retrospect as you sort of look back on what you did. And then there's something like satisfaction, which to me is like pride and accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So it maybe is smaller than kind of big picture happiness. Is my family life good? Do I enjoy my career? Are my children thriving? That's happiness stuff. Satisfaction is like, oh, I finished a big project. I finished a book, and now it's been published and it's out in the world, and I feel proud of that.
Congratulations,
Thank you very
by the way.
much. And I'm satisfied with that. But gratification is simpler and weirder and smaller scale. And it's just that good feeling that comes from your senses contacting the physical world. So like right now as we're talking, I can feel the coolness and the smoothness of the table in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I can hear the sound of my voice echoing through the headphones. Mm-hmm. And, when I came into the building, I had to turn a lever to open the door. And those kinds of sensations, those kinds of experiences, they're happening all the time. And when you have that sort of sense of control, of mastery, or even just connection and contact with the world, it delivers this little payload of joy and delight. And that's what I'm after. That's what I mean by small stuff, like the smallest encounters possible that are easy because it's just a matter of accepting the fact that you are a human being in a human body and your senses are connecting with the world around you.
I've talked so far a lot about driving, my experience using the road atlases in the back of the car when I was a kid, and then the turn signal. And it was actually a car story that served as the inspiration for the book in terms of manual transmissions. Tell us about that.
I did a story a few years ago for The Atlantic about the end of the stick shift. And the end of the stick shift is something that's been foretold for years and years now, and it's been on the wane, especially in the United States, for a long time. And those of us who drive one, I still drive one, we really love doing so. But electric vehicles don't have multi-speed transmissions. And so as EVs become adopted worldwide, the stick shift really will eventually end. So that was the theme of the story. And I thought it was kind of just an indulgence, like a throwaway story that was interesting to me. And but it was hugely popular, and I got all these emails, I got postcards. There was something about that sense of operating a vehicle, operating a machine like that by moving the gears around and clutching in that really tugged at people's sense of humanity. And I realized, okay, this is not just about the stick shift. This is something much bigger than that. And the stick shift is just kind of a symbol of it. And it's also kind of it's something that we're losing or have lost already. I got this postcard from a reader in Massachusetts who had found an old lime green postcard that he had probably saved for decades, and he put these old stamps that had to be licked that I remember having in a stamp collection on them when he mailed it, and told me a little story about how he appreciated it. And I received it at work at my university office here in town. And I remember thinking, gosh, like that too, that's part of the story. When was the last time I licked a stamp or sent a letter? Or you remember how you used to drop mail into the the mailbox, and there was like that door.
Yes, and then you'd hear the clunk at the
You
bottom.
hear the clunk, and there was kind of a creak of the like that, and those doors don't really exist anymore. There's just a slot. I think what happened is that the Postal Service was worried about people putting inappropriate objects or explosives or God knows what into the mailboxes. So now we just have a slot. And I thought about those kinds of things, and I realized, wow, those things are everywhere. That sort of force that I ended up calling dematerialization, this force of being disconnected from the physical world, it had been happening slowly and kind of unnoticed over years and decades. It wasn't just like about smartphone life. That's part of it.
Yeah.
It had been happening kind of everywhere. You go into the restroom and you don't get to turn on the faucet. You kind of wave your hands underneath it in the hopes that the sensor will respond. And
it's like some kind of magic that you're hoping to invoke so that it actually works, and then you're not sure if it's high enough or low enough.
Yeah,
and it's actually very frustrating.
It's really frustrating. It doesn't quite work. I was watching people at my Washington University office try to get in the building by operating the door. It's this big, heavy door. And they would just they would just ram the button that automatically opens it because of the way that regulations have required that fire doors operate in a certain way with a motorized closure. And what occurred to me is that people hadn't chosen this dematerialized life that they were living. They want the click of the turn signal. I really miss closing the hatch on an automobile. Now you have to
push
the
a
button.
Yeah.
And if you don't push the button, it kind of yells at you, right? It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
It's not the right way to
or
do
if you
it.
do something too quickly, it'll like beep at
It
you
beeps.
and then it goes back up.
Oh, it goes back up.
Yeah.
You've done the wrong thing. And so I just started thinking about how that sense of disconnection, that was widespread. And it wasn't really anyone's fault, but it was having these small effects on our everyday life that were building into a sense of malcontent that had been unidentified or maybe even misidentified. So when you have a sense that like my life isn't as good as it could be, the first thing you go to is the big stuff, right? I'm in the wrong job. I live in the wrong town. My relationship isn't going well. But maybe, just maybe, it's my moment-to-moment experience of being a human being in the world is less gratifying than it once was.
Yeah. And your comment about when you mail something, when you'd pull down that door, I still think about where you can experience that now. And when I return a book at the Carpenter branch of the library,
right?
I walk in, and I always walk in. I don't use the outside drop off, but I walk in and go to the side of the desk there, put the book in, and you can only fit maybe 2 or 3 books. And then you pull it down, and then you lift it back up, and it has that gratifying sound, and then the clunk of the book
as it falls through, right? Yeah. And when you think about those kinds of experiences, you know that they're delightful. I mean, they're intuitively. And what I'm talking about when I talk about talking about them is that there's a sense that, of course that's pleasurable. But yet there's still this idea that we're not sort of supposed to be experiencing that kind of pleasure, or that it's like a distraction from other things. And that's just kind of madness to me, because this is such a way of feeling vibrant and alive, to feel that sense of contact with the world. And we have it, even though we've lost it in some cases, with the faucets or with the stick shift or even with the button on the hatch in your car. It's still everywhere because we live in the physical world and we move through it. And as much as we've been like digitized and we've been put in these situations where we don't have as many opportunities for the same kind of gratification we once. I love old telephone handsets, like the Western Electric telephone handset, and the heft of it and the intimacy of having it close to your mouth and your ear. And that's just kind of done, right? But still, then there's the click of the door of my house or my daughter's room when she goes to bed at night, and feeling and hearing it latch. And that sensation is still there. It's just that we kind of forgot about it, or we don't appreciate it as much as we could or we used to. That's what I want us to reintroduce ourselves to.
Yeah. And while I enjoy the book return, I've never thought about it before our conversation just now, and I've never said out loud that it's even something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, maybe it seems odd to say that you enjoy doing it, but you know in your heart that you do, that one of the pleasures of taking books out of the library isn't just reading them, but returning them. And indeed, one of the pleasures of reading isn't the ideas that the words convey, or isn't just the ideas that the words convey, but the feeling of holding a book in your hand, of feeling the pages slide past one another, of the heft of it, of the smoothness of the cover, of sliding it into your bag and pulling it back out again, of its sort of sense of comfort as a book, as a familiar object. And none of that has anything to do with what the book is about or what it's going to teach you, how it's going to improve your life, the story it's going to convey. Mm-hmm. It's all about your engagement with this object in the world.
We asked our listeners on Facebook about small things that they enjoy or miss. And concerning driving, Jesse wrote that they miss having physical knobs and buttons in a car. They write, you used to be able to feel the knob to turn the volume up or the button to change the song. Now with touch screens, you're forced to take your eyes off the road to find the right spot on the screen. John agreed, saying that the lack of buttons and knobs in a vehicle is a real design flaw, saying, I hate the touch screens. And Paula missed having a CD player built into the vehicle.
Yeah.
And I want to hear from you, too. You can share the small things that you miss or the things that you get small moments of gratification from today. Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation with WashU professor Ian Bogost, author of the new book, The Small Stuff, How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
If you have a smart speaker, you have access to the entire world of NPR and St. Louis Public Radio. All the latest news and all the captivating stories. Activate our voices with yours by telling your smart speaker to play St. Louis Public Radio.
Welcome back. I'm Alex Hoyer, sitting in for Elaine Cha. I'm talking this hour with WashU professor and Atlantic writer Ian Bogost. He's the author of the new book, The Small Stuff, How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. And I mentioned that we asked our listeners on Facebook for the things that they miss, the small things that they miss, or the things that they get small moments of joy from today. We heard from Ann and Dale, who wrote that they miss getting postcards and letters in the mail. Crystal prefers the physical tickets we used to get over the digital ones we use now. And Kathy misses reading the Sunday newspaper while drinking coffee at a diner. Again, you can share your thoughts, too, by giving us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. Ian, you write about ticket stubs in the book.
Yeah, I do. It's one of those things that is so visceral. When you used to go to the theater or a concert and you had to go and buy the tickets and then you had to make sure you didn't lose them. I remember like taping them to the back of a cabinet.
So you wouldn't lose them.
I wouldn't lose them. And then you have to remember, where did I put them? And then on the way to the theater, do I have the tickets? They're in my jacket pocket, and kind of pulling them out and feeling them slide past one another, the smoothness of the coated cardstock against the rough surface of the back. Or, sometimes people will delight in keeping a ticket stub as a memento, putting it in a scrapbook or on a pin board. Mm-hmm. And that's also magical, that sense of a memory that you take home. We don't have that either with these QR code tickets. But you don't even need that, right? It's just the sense of this sort of strange object that is not really a part of your life anymore. So one of the things I talk about in the book is finding and kind of keeping little detritus like that, stuff that doesn't mean to exist or doesn't need to exist, and that you don't need to hold on to as a memory or as a token. You can just have for a while and then dispose of, just for the sake of encountering it. It's a great example, the ticket.
I also remember just feeling more confident when I held the physical ticket. These days, whether it's Ticketmaster or Live Nation or whatever it might be, I know that I have the ticket on my phone, But even if my phone is fully charged, I am
Sure.
always
You're worried.
concerned that it's going to run out of battery or the app won't work. And I've spent hundreds of dollars on these tickets to a concert. And what if I can't get in? What am I going to do? So I'll take a screenshot of the ticket, even though it says screenshots cannot be
because
accepted.
they have like a cycled code.
So I don't like not having a physical ticket.
Right. And one of the other things about scanning a code in your phone is that your phone is a very personal, intimate object. And there's something strange about giving it to someone else or showing it to someone else, even if it's on the ticket screen. And so we used to have this kind of diversity of objects that we could allow to do different things in our lives. Car keys are like this too. A lot of times you don't need your keys anymore. You just put them in your bag. And then when you get close enough to your car, it kind of opens. But that sense of I have this thing that I'm kind of jingling in my hands or my pocket as I walk around, not necessarily for any reason, right? I mean, if you go back to Jesse and John's comments about the knobs in the cars, they're absolutely right. But there's a sensation that we should rationalize a gratifying experience because it has a purpose, such as it's safer not to take my eyes off the road. That's true. That's absolutely right. And it's kind of bananas, actually, that we designed automobiles in a way that forced us not to look at the road while we were driving. But that sense of operating the knob is also a delight for its own sake, without it being safer to use or functional in any way. And when you sit in your car parked at the side of the road and you just kind of spin the knob, maybe you're waiting for someone and it's not even, the radio's not even on, but you can just kind of feel the knurl of the knob and the clicks of it. That's also gratifying. So we don't even need purpose or outcome. In fact, in a way, we're so obsessed with purpose, outcome, goals, accomplishments, that attitude has taken us further away from a gratified life, which is different from a happy life. And those two things can live together. They can coexist.
Yes. We have Mary calling from Washington, Missouri. Mary, you're on St. Louis on the Air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Please go ahead with your comment. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, so mine is something that anybody can still do, but just in the late fall or early summer, in the fall or late summer when the leaves are really crunchy and you find a good pile of leaves as you're taking a walk, just to crunch them. And when my kids were little, we made a game out of it, and now they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and if we take a walk, we're still like, ooh, look at that pile, and we're seeing who can get to it first. But anyway, that's just always a good memory, and just it is gratifying for some reason.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling, Mary. Ian?
Mary's comment makes me think of something really important about gratification, which is that it always happens in the moment. It's instantaneous. You can't save it up for later. So when you're walking in the autumn and you can feel those leaves crunching underfoot as you do so, that's like a gift that you must receive right then while you're there with them, because it's going to rain and they're no longer going to be crunchy, and then the season will change again. And I suppose you could, bag them up and try to bring them out at a later time. But that doesn't make any sense, right?
No, it doesn't fit.
So gratification is unusual. It's unusual in the sense of contentment, in that we must experience it right away in the moment, and it's constantly happening to us all the time. And that's made gratification become associated with indulgence, because it's something that you're supposed to avoid, right? Like instant gratification is bad because you're eating too much, or you're smoking, or you're drinking alcohol. Those are the associations that psychology and also just kind of cultural reception have given us toward gratification. But Mary's example shows that it's not like that at all. It's these small pleasures that don't have to be taken to extremes. They just have to be accepted when they arrive.
What is the difference between experiencing the outside environment versus things that have been manufactured and built? Because I feel like the outside, that's like tailor-made, set up for us to enjoy it. But it's different than maybe having the stereo knob, or maybe it's not so different.
It's not so different, I think. Yeah. We live as complex beings in a complicated world, and we're tempted, I think, to believe that natural encounters are somehow purer, they're better, they give us greater connection to contentment and And they're the ones that we should pursue. And the built environment or the designed environment or the human-made environment is somehow sullied. And I understand that sensation, but it's not quite right, is it? Really what happens is we live in this kind of weird hybrid of the natural and the cultural, or the natural and the designed world. The reason that those leaves crunch underfoot in the first place is that they've fallen from trees maybe onto pavement that's been put there by human designers and builders who have constructed an urban environment. They don't really crunch against the ground. And even the grass is something that we've designed and put into place as landscapes. So you do not need to get yourself into this rut where you're like, well, in order to experience gratification, I need to go back into nature. I need to somehow find time for it. I need to go to a national park. I need to take time off. Like, no, it's there all the time. And it is there in the natural environment. It's also there in the human designed or the built environment. And most of all, there are different varieties of it, and you can experience them all at once or one after another. So you crunch the leaves on your way to turn the knob in the car that you're about to get into. And that's just life, right? That's not that one version of that life is better or more righteous than another.
Well, and I feel like it's more acceptable to enjoy the outdoors. Like there's almost an expectation that we enjoy the outdoors.
Certainly if you say, I'm going to go be outdoors, I'm going to have an outdoors experience, I'm going to go into nature, then that makes sense to people as a goal or an accomplishment that's worthy of spending time in. Whereas I think I'm going to turn the knob on my stereo, or there's a story I tell in the book about like peeling the protective film off of a manufactured product. Like there's a name label.
In the book, I think?
It was like a
knife block.
It was a
Yeah,
knife block.
yeah.
And, that's ridiculous. But everyone I've talked to about that example are like, oh my gosh, I love to. Sometimes I'll save up the object for like weeks or years so I can savor peeling the plastic protective film off of the surface of the consumer electronics device I bought. Yeah, I heard this. Yeah. And that doesn't have anything to do with nature, right? It's really about your capacity to engage fully with the world as it delivers itself to you. And that is not ever going to be purely natural.
We have Kurt calling from Chesterfield. Kurt, you're on St. Louis on the Air. Please go ahead.
Hi, I got a comment and then a question for your guest. I'm sitting listening in my car, and I've got the bass up, I've got the volume up, and I'm feeling your voice as I'm listening to you talk about this tactile nature and the nature of tactile things around us. And I just thought it was an interesting juxtaposition. You're talking about it, but it's like your voice on this show is giving me that feeling right now. So kudos to your engineer and maybe your natural voice.
All right. Well, shout out to our audio engineer, Aaron Dorr. And I will say Ian's voice is much more resonant than mine. So good job on the voice, Ian.
I like talking on the radio.
Can I get a question in?
Yes. What's your question, Kurt?
Where can we go from here? There's lots of social media about, these new cars, and they're all touch screens, and I miss my old volume controls, and I want the knobs. Is your studies and research translating into a consumer advocacy group that, hey, we don't want all these touch screens or as many touch screens in the car, and maybe we can claw back some of this natural, human ergonomics.
That's certainly one approach. And when it comes to the knobs in the car and the touch screens, there are some moves to try to restore physical controls. There's been some regulation in the European Union. We'll see if that makes its way to the United States. A number of car manufacturers have at least announced their intention to design some of those controls back into vehicles, partly because people want them. But I don't know that we need to go. I mean, that's all really interesting and worthwhile kinds of pursuits to think about safety and to think about human thriving, and also to think about the kind of designed opportunity that gratification provides. That sort of gratified design is a worthwhile kind of design to pursue. I'm interested in those things personally and professionally. But as Kurt's example suggests, we don't need to go backward, and we don't need to reinvent everything in order to experience gratification, because it's always happening all around us as well. So if you're listening to us on the radio now, you're hearing both our voices, and that's a connection that you have auditorily. And that's something that is just yours. It's yours to take right now. So I don't think we need to get ourselves into a kind of lamentation about the loss of gratification, even though I do think we've lost a lot of opportunities for it. And one way that we reclaim it is just by living the sensory lives that we're already living. That doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue some of these endeavors to kind of redesign our world to be more gratifying. But we don't have to do that, or maybe more appropriately, we don't have to wait for it. It can happen right now, every day, every moment.
And I think that gets to something that I was going to bring up, is that your book is not an argument that we should return to the good old days, or it's not just a trip down a nostalgic lane. Jonathan wrote in to say that he has a bit of a challenge to your premise, saying that reflecting on the idea of how things used to be, says he's reminded of a line that Billy Joel sang, the good old days weren't always good and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. Jonathan says that sentiment is equally true if you hear the song on Spotify or put on a vinyl record.
Right. So one of the things that I talk about in the book is exactly that. Our lives are by and large better because of most of the technological, social, even some of the bureaucratic change that I discuss. We're living better lives than we used to. But also we can't go back. We can't go back, even if we wanted to. Oh, I wish I had the telephone again. Well, good luck, you know? And so there has been a kind of trend toward a kind of nostalgic, like analog living where, you know, instead of having a smartphone with its sleek glass screen, you try to have a flip phone with buttons again, or you spin vinyl or whatever it is that you do to feel the world again, right? And that's all fine. It's a way of sort of reconnecting with the idea of gratification in my mind, but you cannot live in the past. You must live in the present and on into the future. And so one of the helpful things about looking backward, to me, it's not about lamenting the present or longing for a return to the past, but rather just identifying the notion and the problem and the opportunity, and then realizing, oh no, like the pages of my notebook, the everything that I operate every day, the newspaper if you still take it, but even the touchscreen, even the feeling of using your smartphone is gratifying. There's a reason you want to touch it all the time, right? And it's because it's so pleasurable to do so.
I did enjoy when they introduced the haptics, the small vibration that when you do something. I thought that was an improvement with the smartphone experience.
Yeah, it's giving you a sense that this device is almost alive, or that it's reacting and responding to you. Gratification gives us a sense of empowerment and control. Often, I think that's why people love the stick shift so much, or maybe driving in general, like operating machinery. You feel like, oh, I have kind of fused with this apparatus, and I'm extending myself through it, and that's a really good feeling to have. You can have it with a pencil, though, as much as you can have it with a smartphone or a car.
Well, I am a big fan of pencils. I'm known in the office as someone who adores pencils. I'm holding a Blackwing pencil in my hand right now. On the company Slack page, there's a custom emoji where if you type in my name, a pencil pops up.
Perfect.
So I'm a big fan of pencils. And I'd love to hear what you are a fan of, something that gives you a small moment of joy throughout the day. We have some open phone lines. You can give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. We need to take another quick break, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation with WashU professor Ian Bogost, author of the new book, The Small Stuff: How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from Gemma, architects, planners, and designers seeking to bring joy to their clients and communities. Details at gemastl.com.
Welcome back. I'm Alex Hoyer, filling in today for Elaine Cha. I'm talking this hour with WashU professor and Atlantic writer Ian Bogost. He's the author of the new book, The Small Stuff: How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. Ian, I want to talk about the doorbell in your home. To be clear, I haven't been to your home. I haven't rang your doorbell, but you write about your doorbell in the book, and I think it's a very St. Louis story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
I live in one of these old St. Louis houses, built in 1909, and it's all brick, and structural brick as we have here. And the doorbell, when I moved in, didn't work. Because, of course, it did. It'd been cut somewhere, maybe twice along the way as interior renovations had taken place. And I needed a doorbell, or I wanted a doorbell. But I didn't want to get one of those, Ring kind of style digital doorbells, partly because it didn't match the aesthetics of the house. It was too electronic. And also, I just didn't like the what I would later identify as the gratifying feeling of kind of pressing in an old style brass doorbell and feeling its give, and then hearing the doorbell inside resonate. And so I set off on a months-long endeavor to recreate as best I could a working doorbell like that, given the constraints of my property. And the long and the short of it is that I have 5 different computers running the doorbell in my house, but the doorbell itself is like an old world. You press it and it's made of brass, and you feel it push.
I have to interrupt. 5 computers operating a doorbell?
Yeah, it's a long story, but the doorbell connects to a server in my basement, and then it creates this sort of sonorous ring on a speaker that I put in the house that has a nice, bong bong, manor style sound, because that's not the kind of thing you can get easily from a traditional chime that you can buy on the market. And so, it was interesting because I had to pursue a kind of high-tech solution to what was once a low-tech problem. And the idea wasn't to avoid technology, right? But to produce, in this very specific case, a gratifying feeling for my visitors and for myself inside, that when someone arrived, that it was a momentous occasion. I wanted them to feel the home. I wanted it to deliver that sensation.
They will hear it from the outside.
They'll hear it from the outside.
And they expect to hear it.
They expect to hear it, right?
But they wouldn't with a Ring doorbell.
Yeah, it just kind of spins, and it tells you, oh, I'm recording you. Maybe you're not welcome here. And it's all about the technology. It's all about, capturing you because maybe you're going to steal a package. That's kind of what doorbells became in a way. And I didn't want any of that. I wanted the sensation of the way that the house would ring when someone
How did
arrived.
you decide on the sound? Did you survey the family on different doorbell rings?
I could have gone much deeper than I did. This is one of those things where you could maybe go to the city archives and learn something about old doorbells and how they would have rang.
19th century St. Louis mayors,
right.
What doorbell sound?
So that's an opportunity, I suppose, for the future. No, I did some research, and I sort of found some sounds that felt good to me, that felt like they matched the home. And I think this idea of being able to do that, it's also suggestive of an opportunity that I have that not everyone does. I own this delightful, impressive kind of bananas home that I was able to buy in St. Louis because it was affordable. And that means I can customize it and I can connect with it in that way as a homeowner. And that's another kind of loss. That's another form of dematerialization, is as we own less and as we invest in it less as a kind of steward of an object, of a car, a home, whatever it is for the future, we have fewer opportunities to make those adjustments and to connect with that world. So part of the gratification is the result when you ring the bell, and part of it is my ability to connect with my home and to customize it and alter it in a way that gives me pleasure.
I texted my wife this morning because our doorbell is one of those electronic ones that records video, and when somebody rings it, the Alexa inside will say, "Someone's at the door." And I texted my wife and I said, "Is that just the default, or can you customize the sounds that come through on that?" And she's like, "No, you can customize it, but it's someone's at the door." Because of course, when somebody rings a doorbell, someone's at the door.
It's kind of bizarre, right?
Yeah,
what else would it be?
It's weird, right?
Right. Yeah, we've kind of overdetermined things a lot. The way that technology works isn't necessarily it's not necessarily there to operate something. It's more there to present the fact that technology is in the way, is doing some work for us. And I think a lot of the reasons people feel alienated from their lives and they blame technology is because it doesn't seem like the technology is serving your ends. It seems like it's serving some intermediary end that the designers or the operators have provided. And certainly with Ring, that's how I felt. Like I didn't just want to be like recording video that goes up into the cloud that then gets farmed and turned into AI training. But I've got cameras. They're just recording into my basement instead of onto the cloud.
Hillary in University City wrote in and says that they love hanging laundry on a clothesline. She does it all the time and loves the act, the smells, how it feels. Suzanne misses handwriting, writes, I've always loved typing too and using different note-taking apps, but I have a problem with typing every single thing. Suzanne says, sometimes I need the visceral experience of writing. When I'm studying, I must draw some things out and make handwritten notes. It's because there is a very real, legitimate point to be had concerning memory, understanding, emotion, and physicality. Steve wrote in to ask a question. How does the largely Scandinavian concept of hygge, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, align or diverge with the concept being discussed today?
Yeah, so hygge is this idea of kind of like comfort or coziness. It's actually related to Hillary's example, I think. When you take a load of towels out of the dryer, she's hanging them up, but I use the dryer still.
Fancy.
And they're nice and puffy and warm, and you can kind of hold them against your face, and they're clean, and you feel and you smell it, and then you feel their softness and their warmth as you fold them, and that sense of like just being in the right place with a kind of cozy sensation of comfort. That's definitely related to gratification. But it's not necessarily done in order that you can recharge or find place or serve some outcome. It's simply that sort of good feeling of connecting with that object in that moment. And one of the things about our lives today is that we're always trying to avoid things. I just have to do this chore of doing the laundry, and if only I could hire it out, I would. If I could afford to, I would do that, or I'll give it to my kids to do, or I'll just try to work through it as rapidly as possible because there's nothing worthwhile of that. And then I would rather spend my time, typing out emails for my work at home that I've brought home, or helping my kids get into college, or whatever you think is more important. But all of those experiences, they do deliver not just individual kind of moments of gratification, but like a diversity of tactile, sensory, smells, sounds, tastes even. All of those kinds of experiences, they give your life kind of richness, diverse richness of meaning, that you're not just always doing the same thing all the time, which is one of the reasons maybe why typing feels like, typing is enormously gratifying, the click of the keys and all of that. The problem isn't that. It's doing it all the time for everything. And you kind of you long for another way of connecting with ideas, in this case of written ideas, and you pick up a pencil and you hear that sort of sound of it. It's not about what you're writing. It's not even about that idea of cognition that this has been shown in certain studies that if you write something down longhand that you'll retain it better. That's great, but also you don't need that. You can just write with the pencil because it's delightful.
We have some more callers. Jim is calling from Augusta. Jim, you're on St. Louis on the Air.
Yes, when you mentioned writing with pencils, I had to call. I use fountain pens, not exclusively, because a lot of modern paper doesn't work well with fountain pens. But I really enjoy the fountain pen, the whole process, removing the cap and, writing, the feel of the pen on the paper and the flow of the ink and putting new ink in the pen and cleaning the pen and all that. It's just, and like you just mentioned, it when you write things down rather than, putting them in your phone or, voice to text or whatever, you're more likely to remember those things. So I just enjoy the fountain pen a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling, Jim. We also have Deepa calling from Chesterfield. Please go ahead. You're on St. Louis on the Air.
Hello, thanks for having me. Yeah, I really miss the touch screen on my touch buttons on my phone. I used to call my mom with my number 1 button, and number 2 button is for my sister. It was like quick calls for them. Now I have to go down to the screen, and even there are favorites in there, still there are multiple hops to get to the screen. But on those phones, it was very easy, I miss all those, and I like that you brought up this idea of we have to really try back those touching with the skin, touching the things with the skin. And also about writing with a pencil. Yes, that is a good experience. Like the lead breaks down, you have that feeling of, okay, the lead broke. Now I have to again sharpen my pencil. All those are like kind of gone. Like with the screen, you are just typing always with your screen.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling, Deepa. And we also have Sean calling from St. Louis. Sean, you're on St. Louis on the Air.
Thanks for taking my call. I stumbled upon the show while I was driving my stick-shift vehicle down Kings Highway.
Perfect.
And gratification for me revolves around keeping it simple and not having FOMO. I have an old analog stereo with 11 speakers, my original surround sound. I play my djembe drum when I can. Music is always going. I play my drum. I'm also a caver. I explore and map and survey and photograph and count critters in caves as a project caver. And one of the things I like to do when I'm caving is just lay down wherever I can, in the mud, in the dirt, on a rock, and turn my light off and just listen to the sounds of the cave. Sometimes there's water involved. Sometimes the people of the water will talk to me. Sometimes it's the voices of the people around me. Sometimes it's absolutely nothing. It's still and silent. And I went to a drum session, Native American cleansing ceremony and drum in a cave 3 weekends ago in Washington County. And I left there with so much gratitude that I didn't even know that I had. So it just all revolves around keeping it simple, driving a stick shift car, playing music all the time on an old analog stereo, being in mother's womb in a cave, listening to the silence and the sounds, and playing my drum.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling, Sean. Ian, we just heard from a lot of listeners there. Any thoughts about anything you heard there?
There's something in, especially Jim and Deepa's comments, but in Sean's too, that I want to linger on for a moment. And it's kind of this idea, like the fountain pen example in particular. A friend of mine recently wrote to me with that example. There's a sense sometimes that we have to make things harder or more complicated or introduce like friction in order to feel gratification. I mean, there's enormous gratifying delight in operating a fountain pen or in kind of the feeling of menuing through an old style feature phone, which maybe some of your listeners don't even remember the reference that Deepa had to pressing down hard on the button to call a shortcut. But you don't need that. I don't want our listeners to hear these ideas and think that gratification requires like introducing harder work in carrying out the goals that you want to pursue. It's really it's more noticeable in some cases when you begin engaging physically or sensorially with the world, such as by having to load a fountain pen or find a pencil and sharpen it again. But it's also everywhere, even in easy stuff, right? Even in your smartphone and your ability to get things done. There's a reason why that's so gratifying to do. So don't look for like a harder life, or even necessarily a simpler life, as Sean suggests. Although I take his point there, I understand the spirit of it. It's rather about accepting the opportunities for sensory connection that are all around you. Some of those you can design and make choices about. Others you can't, but that doesn't mean that they're not there, ready for you to take them.
We have about 20 seconds left. What would you hope to leave our listeners with in terms of the book?
The gratification is a first-order important kind of human contentment that should sit alongside happiness and satisfaction. It's not just something to be glanced over.
Ian Bogost is a contributing writer for The Atlantic, and he's the Barbara and David Thomas Distinguished Professor at Washington University, where he teaches computer science and engineering, film and media studies, and art and design. And his new book is The Small Stuff, How to Lead a More Gratifying Life. Ian, thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Today's episode was produced by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.